All right, you freaking space cadets, strap yourselves in, because today we're going to rip a fat one straight into this Wikipedia black hole. It's about the vision for space exploration. Yeah, yeah, no Wikipedia. What can I say? Sometimes the dude's got to get a little chaotic, right? This whole thing was cooked up to get us back on the moon and then shoot our asses to Mars like a goddamn rocket. Ambitious. Fuck yeah. Bad shit crazy. Yeah, probably. So let's rip this fucker open and see what went wrong.
Well, it wasn't all a total shit show. It did try to get the public fired up about space again after that whole Columbia disaster back in '03.
Right, the Columbia thing.
Yeah.
Total bummer. 7 astronauts gone.
Yeah.
Just like that. Space travel. It's a risky business, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But hey, I guess there's no better way to help people forget about a national tragedy than by promising them a trip to Mars, right? Classic political bullshit, am I right?
The timing's definitely interesting. The vision for space exploration, or VSE for short, was announced in 2004 by President Bush. It was a pretty ambitious plan aiming for a sustainable human presence in space.
Sustainable human presence in space. Sounds like some fancy-ass bullshit. What the hell does that even mean? Like, are we going to be building space condos and ordering takeout from lunar dominoes or what?
It meant setting up a permanent base on the moon. It's a stepping stone to Mars and beyond. Think of it like making a base camp at Everest before you try to climb the whole damn thing.
So you're saying the moon was just a cosmic rest stop?
Yeah.
Why not just haul ass straight to the red planet?
Well, the moon's gravity is a lot weaker than Earth's, so it's cheaper to launch stuff from there. Plus, there's all that in-situ resource utilization crap.
You mean like using moon rocks and space dust? What the hell are they going to do with that? Build a goddamn lunar sandcastle.
Not exactly. The moon might have water ice in those craters at the poles. You can break that shit down into hydrogen and oxygen for rocket fuel. They might even be able to mine helium-3. That's a super rare isotope that they could use in fusion reactors someday.
Hold up, fusion reactors. That's straight out of Star Trek. Are we talking about power in cities with moon juice here?
It's a long shot, but that helium-3 could be a game changer. But even with all the moon's advantages, there were still a lot of haters out there. They saw the VSE as just a rehash of Apollo. Trying to relive the good old days without actually doing anything new. Even Buzz Aldrin wasn't buying it.
Buzz Aldrin. Damn, that's a legend right there.
Yeah.
What was his problem with the whole thing? Did he want to go full-on Star Trek and warp speed to a new galaxy?
Aldrin thought the VSE was too focused on the moon and not ambitious enough. He thought we should go straight to Mars. He argued that what we'd learn from a Mars mission would be way more valuable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why waste time on a dusty old rock when you can go straight for the main course? Right? So what was the plan to get our asses back to the moon anyway? Did they have some secret rocket-powered Winnebago hidden in Area 51 or something?
That was the Constellation program, with its 2 big-ass rockets, the Ares I for crew and the Ares V for all the heavy shit.
Ares I and V. Sounds like some kind of Greek god shit.
Yeah.
Were they going to have a chariot race on the moon or something?
The Ares V was a beast of a rocket. It was supposed to carry like 188 tons to low Earth orbit. It was going to deliver all the modules and supplies for a moon base.
Right.
And the Ares, it was meant to get the astronauts there.
188 tons. Holy shit, that's like launching a whole apartment building into space. Imagine the fucking party you could throw in that thing. But let's cut the crap here. We both know this VSE thing went tips up. What the hell happened?
Well, like with all these big space plans, the VSE slammed headfirst into a big fat wall of reality. Technical issues, budget problems, and of course the same old political bullshit.
Politics.
Yeah.
The ultimate boner killer for anything even remotely cool. So which asshole in Congress decided to flush our moon dreams down the toilet?
It wasn't just Congress, man. The VSE got caught in a tug-of-war between the cheapskates who thought it cost too much and the dreamers who thought it wasn't ambitious enough.
Wait, so it's too expensive. AD, not ambitious enough. These politicians couldn't make up their goddamn minds. So what happened? Did they just throw their hands up and say, fuck it, let's go argue about healthcare instead?
Pretty much. In 2010, the Obama administration scrapped the whole Constellation program and came up with a new plan.
Obama? Huh. So what was his big idea for space? Did he decide to focus on building a giant death laser to fight off aliens or something?
Not quite. Obama's plan was to keep the International Space Station going for longer, encourage private companies to get into space and keep sending robots to Mars. Plus, they wanted to capture an asteroid.
Capture an asteroid? What the hell for? Were they going to turn it into a giant disco ball or something?
The idea was to move a small asteroid into orbit around the moon so astronauts could study it and practice for deep space missions. It was supposed to be a stepping stone to Mars, a way to test out new tech, like solar electric propulsion and using resources we find out in space.
So instead of planting a flag on Mars, they wanted to play catch with the space rock. Sounds kind of lame, don't you think?
It wasn't as flashy as a Mars mission, I'll give you that. But it had its upsides. The asteroid thing was just one part of the plan, though. This was also when all the commercial spaceflight stuff started taking off with companies like SpaceX and Boeing getting in on the action.
Yeah, the space billionaires, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos waving their dicks around trying to see who can build the biggest rockets and the fanciest spaceships. Tell me more about this commercial spaceflight thing. Did NASA just subcontract space travel to the highest bidder?
It wasn't just about outsourcing. NASA saw it as a way to team up with private companies to come up with new ideas and make things cheaper, like the Commercial Crew Program. That was all about building spacecraft that could take astronauts to and from the ISS so we wouldn't have to rely on the Russians anymore.
So we were bumming rides from the Russians to get to the space station. Talk about an awkward carpool. But hey, if it saved us some cash, why the hell not?
The program had its fair share of delays and problems, but in the end, it worked. SpaceX's Crew Dragon started flying astronauts to the ISS in 2020, and Boeing's Starliner should be up and running soon.
So finally, some competition in the space taxi game. Good for those astronauts. I bet the snacks are way better on a SpaceX Dragon than a Russian Soyuz.
This whole shift towards working with private companies was a big change for NASA. It's too soon to say what it'll mean in the long run, but it's definitely shaken things up.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the Trump era. What did that orange-tinted motherfucker have in mind for the space program?
Trump brought back the National Space Council and set some pretty ambitious goals for NASA, like getting back to the moon and eventually sending people to Mars.
Trump promising the moon and Mars.
Yeah.
Figures. Did anyone actually buy that shit?
Well, his administration did start a new program called Artemis. It was supposed to land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon by 2024.
2024. Talk about shooting for the moon, literally. Even with Trump's grab him by the pussy style, that deadline seemed like a pipe dream.
Yeah, most people thought 2024 was way too soon. The program's had a lot of delays and money problems.
Delays and budget issues? No shit. In a government-funded space program, what a surprise.
Even with all the setbacks, the Artemis program's still going. It's just slower than they planned. They're working on a new lunar lander, a space station that'll orbit the moon called Gateway, and a massive new rocket called the Space Launch System, or SLS.
The SLS, that's the one they've been messing around with for like a decade, right? The biggest, baddest rocket ever. Have they actually launched that fucker yet, or is it still sitting in a warehouse somewhere?
The first SLS test flight, Artemis, I launched in November 2022. It didn't have any crew on board, though. It just sent the Orion capsule on a trip around the moon and back.
So they finally got the SLS off the ground. That's something, I guess. But let's be real here. The whole Artemis thing feels like a rebranded version of Constellation, doesn't it? Same goals, same problems, just a new name and a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, there are some similarities, but Artemis is also more about working with other countries and private companies, like the European Space Agency is building a service module for the Orion capsule, and a bunch of private companies are bidding on contracts to build parts of the lunar lander.
So now it's a global space orgy. Everyone's getting in on the action.
It's definitely more of a team effort these days. And that's probably a good thing. Space exploration is expensive and complicated, so it makes sense for countries and companies to work together.
All right, so where the hell does that leave us now? Are we actually going to get back to the moon anytime soon, or are we just going to keep jerking each other off with these big plans and then fall flat on our faces?
It's a total crapshoot, man. The future of space exploration? I mean, we've got some momentum going, but there's also a shit ton of uncertainty.
Uncertainty? In space exploration. You're pulling my leg, right? It's not like we're trying to predict the weather or something.
Look, the Artemis program's running into some serious roadblocks, both with the tech and the money. And let's not forget about the political shit show that always seems to go hand in hand with these big space projects.
Yeah, the political game. One minute they're promising us the moon, and the next they're cutting funds and giving tax breaks to billionaires.
Yeah.
It's a fucking roller coaster, and we're all strapped in for the ride.
A new president could come in tomorrow and completely fuck everything up. That's what's so frustrating. There's no guarantee that anyone's going to stick with it no matter how much we hype it up.
So you're telling me the whole future of space exploration depends on the mood swings of whoever's sitting in the Oval Office? That's a pretty fucked up thought. What happens if some climate change denying anti-science dipshit gets elected? Do we just kiss our Martian dreams goodbye?
It's definitely something to worry about, but on a more positive note, the private sector is more involved than ever before, and that's bringing a lot of energy and new ideas to the table.
Yeah, those billionaires are going all in on space. It's like a cosmic dick measuring contest with rockets and spaceships as their toys. But hey, if their vanity projects end up getting us closer to Mars, I'm all for it.
It's not just about space tourism and ego stroking, though. Companies like SpaceX are building reusable rockets and spacecraft, which could really bring down the cost of getting to space in the long run.
Reusable rockets. Now that's a fucking brilliant idea. Maybe NASA should take some notes. They've been blowing billions on single-use rockets for decades.
They're taking notes, actually. NASA's working with private companies on a lot of the stuff for the Artemis program.
So it's all about teamwork now. Governments and corporations holding hands and reaching for the stars. Sounds kind of like a hippie space commune.
It's definitely more of a group effort these days. And that's probably a good thing. Space exploration is a huge undertaking. It's too big and complicated for any one country or company to handle on its own.
Okay, so let's say, just for the sake of argument, that we managed to get back to the moon and even set up a permanent base. What's next? Is Mars actually a possibility, or is that just a pipe dream, something to keep us distracted from the shit show down here on Earth?
Mars is definitely the ultimate goal for a lot of people in the space community. But it's a hell of a lot harder than getting to the moon. We're talking about a trip that would take years, not days. And that means dealing with radiation, the possibility of Martian microbes messing with our bodies, and a whole bunch of other stuff we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, Mars is a whole different ballgame. It's not like hopping on a plane for a weekend trip to Vegas. We're talking about pushing the limits of human endurance and technology. It's both exciting and terrifying at the same time.
We're going to need to come up with a whole new set of technologies, advanced life support systems, radiation shielding more efficient ways to get around, and we'll need a rocket that makes the SLS look like a goddamn firecracker.
So basically what you're saying is we're talking decades of research and development, a shitload of money that would make Bezos jealous, and a level of political commitment that's about as common as a sober night in Congress.
It's a long shot, no doubt about it. But hey, humans have a way of pulling off the impossible. Remember what we did back in the Apollo days? We landed on the fucking moon with computers that were less powerful than a toaster.
True that Apollo was a mind-blowing achievement. It just goes to show that when we actually put our minds to it, we can do some pretty badass shit.
The point is we shouldn't underestimate human ingenuity and our stubbornness. If we pool our resources, focus our efforts, and actually commit to this, we can get to Mars.
All right, you've got me feeling a little more optimistic now. So what can we, the average schmuck stuck down here on this rock, do to help make this happen? Besides, watching SpaceX launches on YouTube and buying flamethrowers from Elon Musk?
Stay informed. Support STEM education. Vote for politicians who actually give a shit about space exploration. Hell, maybe even think about a career in the aerospace industry.
Solid advice. Who knows? Maybe one of our listeners will be the first person to set foot on Mars. Or maybe they'll just open up a Martian bar and serve alien cocktails. Either way, it's all good.
The future of space exploration is a wild card, man. It's full of possibilities, both good and bad. It's exciting, it's scary, it's full of potential.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the vision for space exploration. We started with big dreams, wandered through a maze of political bullshit and budget battles, and ended up somewhere between hope and despair.
But it's not over yet. The story of space exploration is still being written.
Damn, that's a good line. I'm going to have to steal that one for later. Anyway, thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the cosmos, folks. Remember, this deep dive was brought to you by the all-knowing, all-seeing Wikipedia, the source of all truth. Sometimes. Until next time, Space Cadets.